Well, good morning or good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where you are in the world today. I am, as always, super excited to be talking about what we're doing, what we're delivering at Domotz, and some of the changes we've made. I'm sure that a lot of our current users have seen some of these changes already. You've been playing with the UI. But today we're going to give a much broader overview about what we've done, why we've done it, a little bit of how we've done it. With me today, I've got Giancarlo Fanelli as well. Giancarlo, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah,
Very
perfect.
excited to be here as well.
In fact, Giancarlo, you're chiming in from Italy this time. Normally you're hanging out in California, but you're actually in Pisa, Italy with our
Yeah,
development.
that's correct statement. So I was not, sure to say good morning to everybody or good afternoon to everybody. It's afternoon for me today. Yeah, usually I am in the morning for these kind of webinars.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you're over there. It's good that you, one, get to see your family, right? Get to visit them after this long pandemic, but also you get to be with the development team to make sure that we're doing all the right stuff for our users.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Let me go over a couple quick things. First and foremost, this is actually going to be a fairly lengthy webinar. I will tell you guys that it is being recorded, so you will have that. The reason that I say it's lengthy is when you look at our agenda here, you can see we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to spend a lot of time on the new interface. We're going to talk about both the manage section that the UI opens up to, but then we're also going to talk a little bit about the monitoring section, which we've addressed in the past. But then we're going to dive into some of the things that we're doing beyond this as well. Some of the custom integrations. We talked about that earlier this year, but we want to spend a bit more time chatting on what we're doing with that, how we're doing it, and what the plans are. Also, I think we can get into some use cases as to how people have used that. So that'll come up in some conversations. We'll talk a lot about network configuration management, what we're doing there. And then we're also going to talk about some of the newer APIs. I know not everybody is familiar with the APIs or even utilizes the APIs, but I will tell you that we have a lot of, we're starting to see a lot more integrators as well as developers that are starting to develop against our APIs, and we put some things in place that really helps you as a service provider better utilize Domotz. And I'm frankly quite excited about it and what it means for us. And then we'll get into some of the future items that we are working on. A lot of those future items relate to how the monitoring and manage section will change and fundamentally improve. And then also we'll talk a little bit about some of the directions that we're going forthwith on some of the capabilities and features as well. That being said, we are not going to show our videos because we're going to consume as much of the space as possible for our the desktop application so we can see the screens. So let me just take you right into the manage section. And oh, I should definitely point out, you guys know this, right? We're on a GoToWebinar session. This is live. We want you to ask questions. We actually have our team of support as well as sales folks standing by to answer questions. So use that question section in the GoToWebinar control panel, and our team will get to you as promptly as possible. Giancarlo, is there anything that you think we need to touch on before we really dive into this? Anything you wanted to say?
No, not specifically. We will. I'm so excited to show all the new things that we have been added in the last few months. You remember, we had this similar webinar in November where we showcased a couple of big features that we released. This is even bigger, probably in terms of UI, but also in terms of backends, upgrades, API, and so on. So just want to remind that this is probably going to take 1 hour just to show a very high level, from a very high level, what we have been adding in the last few months. And then we will be happy to cover question and answer in an additional 30 minutes. So it will be probably longer than the usual 1 hour that we use for this kind of webinar.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. So So let me touch on a couple points, right? As a product manager, I think it's really important for you guys to understand why we have changed this screen so drastically. Most of you are familiar with this. Anytime I've opened up the screen, you've seen this, what we are considering now to be a legacy view, where you've got this geo-located map here showing where your sites are. You've got a list of all the sites, right? All of your agents that you're monitoring. We've always talked about the simplicity of this view, right? The red, yellow, green status to know when sites are in trouble, or being able to zoom into sections to quickly see, what's going on in these particular sites, right? This has actually been really nice, and we've had a lot of very positive comments on this. One of the things that we have consistently heard, though, from people is that they want a view of the data, right? They want a view of the information that is relevant to each one of these sites. Of course, they want to be able to see the status as well, but they also want to quickly dive into, it's like, okay, this device is, or this site is at this location, it's at this MAC address, whatever. We want to be able to show that quickly. In order to do that, we felt that we had to go back and reevaluate how a dashboard should really look, right? Things that we needed to really focus on. One was performance. We needed the system to act fast. We needed you to feel like you could work faster, you could work smarter. The other thing that was so critical for us is scalability. We know as a service provider, you're not dealing with just one customer. You're dealing with, tens, if not hundreds. And in some cases, we have customers that have thousands of sites that are being monitored. We needed a way to be more efficient for that and work faster. The other critical thing that drove us down this path with the new dashboard had to do with flexibility. Okay, we know that everybody has different ways of working. We know that they may care about certain types of data and not other types of data. We wanted to build a dashboard that would allow you to see the information that you care about, filter on the information that you care about, and really give a better view, a broader view of the things that you want to see. We talked a lot about that when we went into the monitoring dashboard as well, right? Being able to create these own customized monitoring tables. We took a lot of feedback from the last 6 months of what you see in the monitoring table, and we wanted to really put that forth into the management section as well, a lot of that data and the filtering capabilities. So we'll dive a bit into that. And then lastly, it was also about being able to directly access either the sites or devices that are here and make the changes that you wanted to make in these areas. Okay, so this is these three things, right? Performance, flexibility, and kind of that notion of direct access are the things that really drove us down this path that led us to where we are today with this table. With that being said, I want you to know, in my mind, this is just the beginning of where we're going with this, okay? We are for those of you that have been with us for several years, you know that we are an agile company. We're a software-based company, of course, and we are constantly improving our user interface. And one of the things that Giancarlo and I were talking about yesterday as we were talking about doing this webinar is how do we let you guys know that this is just the beginning and we are continuing to add capabilities and features. But this, we felt, again, putting my product management hat on, we felt that this was a very good minimum viable product that makes the changes that we need in order to fulfill on that performance and flexibility that we wanted to give to you. That's really an introduction before we dive into some of the usage. Giancarlo, was there anything that you wanted to mention about this before we kind of dive into, what we used to do or how you used to be able to see things on the legacy page and how you can get to it now? Anything you wanted to mention? Are you muted, Giancarlo? You are muted.
Yes, sorry, I was talking while muted. Yeah, everybody's is used to this kind of online, you're mute, please unmute, and so on. So thanks. So yeah, GB, I would say that the new UI, of course, for whoever was used to the old UI, looks different, of course, no, and looks it is delivering much more information. So due to that nature, it might appear like confusing, but trust us that while you start using that, you will realize that it gives you much more power and much more, let's say, velocity, or you will be quicker in identifying issue on your network. But more importantly, this is the manage section. It will give you access to the devices. It will give you access to the configuration that you need to do to have a better monitoring of your system.
Right.
The old dashboard was, yeah, it was clearly a nice one to show in a NOC center, for instance.
Yes.
To, yeah, if you want to put it on a big display and you want to showcase to your customer, this looks very nice, no? It's very nice way of representing a NOC center or something. And trust me when I say that we are going to dismiss this one, but we are going to create something more powerful, and you will have the possibility through widgets to create a similar one like this, and you can put your big screen on your showroom.
Absolutely. You know, that's a really good point, Giancarlo. And we know this, and we've gotten this feedback. A lot of people like to show this view that I'm showing right here of all of their customers, because it is kind of a marketing tool for them, right? It shows, hey, these are all the different sites that you're monitoring and how you're managing them. We're going to bring that capability into the monitor section as well when we talk about that. One thing that I want to point out as we look at some of the differences, right? That legacy screen that you see, I'll just go back to it for a second, right? You can easily see on the left-hand column of the sites that you're monitoring, you know, which ones are online, which ones are offline. And I think more importantly, right, you could see which important devices that you have were offline. And another key point that's here in the system, right? You could easily just click on, you know, the 3 offline section. It'll take you right into that, right? And then you can go and manage those as appropriate. One of the things that we have done in this, if we go look at that particular site, so if I go and filter, it's down at the bottom here with the way I have it filtered, you'll notice that the IoT lab, and everybody knows that this just ultimately is my house. What we're doing is we're again giving you more information, right? You still see that those 3 particular devices are offline, but now you know 3 out of how many important devices are in this, right? How can I understand, you know, holistically, how big is this network? This is one of the advantages that we're bringing to you. If you wanted to, within the manage section, you know, easily see, you know, either all your devices or all your systems that just have important devices, you can start to filter those. If you want to sort, okay, by the number of sites that have the most offline devices and why, you have the ability to do that now. We think, and Giancarlo and I have both had discussions about this, it's one thing to have a particular site that has offline devices, but now being able to sort by which sites are probably the most critical, which are the most important based on this type of data, we think gives you a broader view. Probably. Hey, Giancarlo, I think you're getting a phone call. So I know people are calling you because they're excited about this new UI, Giancarlo. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
This really gives you a good view of how you can see this type of information. Let's go beyond just the things like important devices or seeing status. So, of course, you guys can filter by status of which sites are offline, right? You have the ability to do that as well. You can scroll over to the right, and this was a big point of conversation as well. I want to point out a use case which I think is so important here that people don't actually get, and that is we're looking today at the number of sites. Okay, you can see we have the managing of sites. We also have the managing of devices. Okay, but let's talk about sites first. One of the things that we often see is somebody will call into support and say, hey, you know, this particular site is offline. I didn't get an alert on it. Well, our response is often, did you happen to set up an alert for that? Right? Did you? We do not automatically send an email. We don't automatically send out a ticket, okay, if a site goes offline. It's up to you to configure that. With our new view, you can now easily see if an alert profile has been set up on particular devices. In fact, you can filter on sites that don't have alerts, okay, set up. If you want to go in and quickly add an alert to this, you can do that. So even if you want to add it to multiple, I can't do it to sites that I don't own. Let's just go to sites that I do own here, which if I remember correctly, I can filter by, hold on, I'll find it. Giancarlo, where's my, is it because I filtered here? Go to all alerts, go to my IoT platform. Yeah, ones that are, here it is. I've got this GoToWebinar control panel in my way. So the license owner, right? So I can look by ones that are owned by me. Okay, so these are ones that I can now make sure that I have alerts set up to. All right, on these alert profiles, if I want to quickly add one, I can do that, right? I can come in here and add a ticketing alert or add a personal alert as appropriate and set that up. This is what's going to allow me to then set up alerts on all my sites and make sure that if a site does go offline, I'm going to quickly and easily know that, okay? This is just some of the capabilities that we have now put into this. Let's talk a little bit about these columns on the sites page before we get into the devices page, and then we'll get into the monitoring section. For these, for this list, in fact, let's turn off my filter here so we can see all these sites that I'm looking at. You can easily see, you know, the number of online devices that are there, right? The number of important devices that are online. We've talked about that. How our network is set up. What do we mean by network setup? So if I want to view these details, right, we can talk about what is known as attached networks. These are things where you have configured the agent's network interface card to see either VLANs, essentially think of them as VLANs, right? The layer 2 connections, you've set up the NIC for that. Or if you've configured it to look at routed networks, so these would be subnets that you have configured at a layer 3 level, right? Or if you have external hosts that are set up. So often when I'm doing demos, I'm looking at things like Google DNS, BlueJeans, Cloudflare, right? These are the types of external networks that we're looking at. You can easily get in here and add these networks or add things to this agent as well from this view, okay? When it comes to integrations with different services that are out there, whether you're dealing with something like Ubiquiti and Unify, or whether you have a PSA system set up to look at these, you will notice that also inside this view. We've talked about the status. The status is an obvious one, but how long a particular site has been either online or offline, being able to filter by that, we think is quite powerful. We talk about security issues as well. That was one thing that was very easily highlighted in this legacy view. You still have that same type of view here where you can see sites that may have security issues associated with those. And of course, you can review those, right? Click directly into that page and see what is going on in that particular site. So your ability to get to the interfaces that you knew before is still there. I talked already about the alert profiles, right? I gave you a quick use case, which is if the site goes offline, being able to understand why you did or didn't get an alert for that quickly shows up here under this alert profiles. And then we've got a lot of questions about, you know, sorry, not questions, but who are these systems configured for, right? Who's the end customer, right? These are the, go ahead.
Just right timing for that, because we got the question about how I can group or sort by customer. You know, I might have myself as a service provider, I might have different companies I work for, and each company has multiple sites. And he was asking, how can I, let's say, sort by that or
absolutely. So you can see within the search field, right, of all the sites, which I'm only looking at about 11 sites, but if I type in that search field, I type the word Violet, right? We see 2 sites that have the word violet, right, which quickly sorts into that. So this is a nice, clean, and easy way to do that. If I then need to, sort alphabetically so I can go find the right location, I can do that. We also, Giancarlo, along the same lines, know that a lot of service providers will often have either contract IDs or some sort of number, maybe even a customer ID associated with a client that may not be an email, right? We can filter by those things, okay? So in this case, you can see we had the word Draper, right, in there. So anytime we see the word Draper, we'll show it. Or if I have a contract ID that maybe ties to multiple customers, I can filter on that. Or I should say multiple sites within the same customer, I can filter on that. So
Yep.
It's a good question. Keep asking those if you see something come up.
Yep, thanks.
And then of course there's the owners, right? Who actually created this license? Who's the owner of this license? In a situation where you are a primary service provider and you're not collaborating with others, these are usually going to be filtered by your name, but I have a lot of sites that I collaborate with. Now, one last thing I want to point out on this page, the actions, right? You have the ability to get in here, look at the network performance, look at the network topology that's associated with these systems. You can create a tunnel, right, into these sites right from this page, okay? Being able to look at how you are monitoring the systems, right? We talked about the routed subnets and VLANs and external hosts. If you need to add some of that, if you need to add certain types of devices like dummy devices so you can power cycle a system that may not be network connected, you can add those here. And then of course, all those notions about logging and reporting, right? Being able to communicate with your customers, it's all still enabled. It's under this actions tab that's at the end of this table. So please take a look at that. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about devices. Okay. Oh, I should point out one thing that I didn't, right? We have the map at the top here. You'll notice that this is a dynamic view. You can shrink this map if you don't want to see the maps, if you want to see more sites. You'll also notice that the information that's at the top, right? So example, this 11 important offline devices. You can go in and filter directly by these if you want to quickly filter based on some of this information. If you have inactive sites, being able to review which ones those are and being able to change those, you can do that. So this really gives you some easy ways to look at this. By the way, we recognize that some people want to view more of the map and less of the sites, or maybe view the data differently. We're looking in the future about making this a little bit more dynamic as well. Let's now talk about devices. In the same vein as being able to search like we had in the search before for particular devices, you'll see that we give you a list of how many devices you're looking across all of your networks. If you want to search for specific devices, you can do that. So let's say I want to search for Cisco-based devices. Anywhere the word Cisco is on any of the sites, we're going to show it in this table. But if I want to go even further and I want to look at SG350, so they're managed switches, I can filter on that by make and model, and I can see what's there. We pull in as much information into the dashboard right now as we can. We have things that you would expect, such as the type of device, where these are located, its IP address and MAC address. Easy to use. Before you had to dive into the device details, you had to scroll down to the bottom of the page. We've tried to make this a lot more simple. If these things are tagged, okay, as important, we have that here, okay, what its status is. The insights column is something that I'm really, really excited about. Right? This is something that, as we look at a device, knowing that a device has SNMP capabilities or not will show up here. Knowing, in this case, it's a managed switch, so we are doing configuration backup on these things, or we have the ability to do that. This is where we start to give you more insight as to what's there. In fact, if I back this out, in fact, I need to turn off the filter for SG350. One of the things you guys always know that I like to show, because I think it's pretty awesome, are cameras. So even when we have insights like this camera's capability for on-viv monitoring, right? We show that here in this insight columns. So this insights is really giving you more or letting you know that there is potentially more information available on this particular system, what we need to do is make sure that it's configured. You'll notice this particular camera flags as being locked, right? That means that you need to provide access credentials to that, and we make you aware of that. Moving over, you'll see things like sensors, right? Which are there TCP sensors assigned to these particular devices? Are there SNMP sensors assigned to these particular devices or this device, right? You can filter on these types of information so you can easily set up and configure systems as you need to. I also will point out, just like at the agent level, this notion of having alerts assigned to devices or not is visible here. So here again, I'm just looking at cameras, but if I want to go see which cameras do not have alerts associated to them, so I can go in and quickly configure that, I can. And one thing I'll point out here as well, when it comes down to being able to select multiple systems, I can now come in and configure any of the information across all the devices. We had that capability in the search section before, but now you have it under this manage platform. So you can really manage these systems faster and with more flexibility. Actions wise, so when we have a particular camera, if we look at this, look at this system, we can come over here and click the actions. As you would expect to see with the sites holistically and the actions you take, these actions now become more specific to a device. Being able to do performance tests, being able to view the round trip delay information from these systems and how they're behaving, right? This helps you with the understanding network diagnostics, being able to create connections directly to these devices easily and quickly is here. When a device is set up for power control, so if it's associated to a PDU or it's associated to a PoE port, you'll have control of that just like you would before. And if, in this case, this is a security camera, being able to take a quick snapshot. These are the types of fundamental actions that you have on that device. So if Domotz can do something with that device, whether it's connect to it, ping it, power cycle it, you'll have that ability under this table here. So hopefully I've given you an overview of the capabilities. I should mention, I'm seeing this as well, and I know Giancarlo will want me to comment on this. This 26 not configured, right? If I want to filter on all the devices that are out there that are not yet configured for insights, right? Being able to do OS monitoring on a particular server or look at the SNMP sensors, you can quickly filter on that as well. So that way you know of all the devices that are out there what I need to be looking at. Even if I wanted to go as far as saying, okay, what are the not configured devices that are associated to the Draper site, okay? In this case, I would do that. Obviously, they're all configured there. So there we go. Some not configured devices on the IoT lab, right, for OS monitoring. So this is just a nice, easy way that you can get in and manage the systems as a whole. Giancarlo, I've been talking a lot. Is there anything that I missed that
you cover a lot of things. If you can click on the remove the filters button, the X, you are also going to answer to one of the questions. So somebody was asking, can I remove all the filters? And the answer is yes, you can remove one by one, or you can even remove all together with just clicking the X on all the filters. Just to remove all the filters together.
You'll notice that, you notice that when I click on a filter, it shows up in the filtered by. And if I want to eliminate them all, I can just hit that large X, or like you said, one by one. Good question.
We will add more and more capabilities here. We have some question like, can I rearrange the columns? Can I sort by default something and then save as a default? We will add that, so don't worry about that. This is really the, let's say, first step into this direction. We'll add more and more capabilities to make it even more usable to you guys. Another question, which probably sometimes is not evident, let's say very clear. This is like a large column. So if you have a large screen, you see all the columns, sorry, a large table, you see all the columns together, but you can easily scroll down with like a mouse, but there is also scroll left and right. Now to see the columns, you can scroll left and right with the bottom bar that JB is showing now. So with the trackpad, this is very easy to scroll left and down. But if you only use a mouse, you probably need to drag the scroll bar there. Yeah, thanks JB.
I do think, Giancarlo, your point about flexibility, I know that, some people may want to have the IP and MAC address actually closer to the device name, and they may want it pinned. Those capabilities are coming, right?
Yeah.
Being able to move that flexibility is there. Again, it speaks to the fact that this is just the beginning of some of these major changes that we wanted to do. But we really felt that this was a good time to release this management interface the way it is, and we want to hear your feedback on other changes you'd like so we can implement those.
Yep, very good, JB. JB, we can jump to the next one. If you can give me possibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me change presenter to you, Giancarlo.
See if I can do the presenting. Oh yes, I think screen 2 is the one. So
don't show the wrong screen, Giancarlo.
Yeah, otherwise you will see my phone calls, and the text that I'm doing. No, I hope I'm sharing my Domotz web app. I'm going to show through the web app instead of the desktop app, just because I have also other tabs that I want to show there. So this is very, very quick access to our support, one of our support channel, where you guys, you customers, are sharing access to your agent. So why I'm showing that is because I want to make sure that you realize that this view is very scalable. When I mean very scalable, it means that I can access to 700 different agents or sites, and we have customers that have thousands of agents. And now they can see all the thousands of agents all in one view. They can very quickly search by their customer or by the contract if they have a contract, or even by the IP or MAC address of the agent itself. But if you look at the devices, we are talking about, in this view, we are talking about 200,000 devices. Again, very quickly you can filter for all the important devices that are currently offline and so on, all the devices which have sensor configured very quickly. And as you see, we are talking about 200,000 devices. The one customer I was mentioning with thousands of agents, we're speaking about millions of devices all in one view.
Yep.
And this is just to make sure that you realize that there is a huge difference in performance from the old UI to the new UI. Once you search for the device that has SNMP configured and they have like a sensor there, you can see the details very, very quickly there.
Giancarlo, I know you and the team spent a lot of time, improving the back-end database that's there and how it's hosted. And kudos to the team for being able to show hundreds of thousands of devices right in one view.
Yeah, thanks a lot, JB. And it seems, I mean, the UI is basically just hiding what it is in the backend. I mean, all the improvement in the backend that we have been working on for the last few months. And I'm mentioning that because both you and me, JB, we are both engineers in the room, and we realize that something that is apparently simple, it's hiding a very huge complexity in the backend, and that's right. Exactly what's happening there. Now, what I want to jump on is new capability that we have added in the monitoring dashboards since the last webinar. Now, we did a specific webinar in November where we showcased the monitoring dashboard as a new feature. It was pretty simple at the time. You could add like a simple dashboard. You could not even rename the dashboard. You could not even move the dashboard in the sorting and other stuff that I'm going to tell you. So first thing, yeah, as I was mentioning, you can now drop and drag the dashboard because you want to reorder in the way you want to access to the custom dashboard that you create. This is one of the first things we added. Not the most important probably, but of course you can rename now the dashboard. You can delete dashboard. So this is like a webinar dashboard. Hey,
Easy for you to spell.
Yeah, webinar dashboard and so on. As I was mentioning, these are just few aesthetic things that, as we promised in November, we were going to add, and we have added. But most important, this dashboard is something that if you want to put on a screen, you can, and most likely you would probably like to add more tables. I mean, there is some space not used here. So what you probably want to do is like reduce some of the dashboard to make it more useful, and then drag and drop in the correct space, so you have a better usage of your space on the screen. No. And this is something that is very, very powerful when you want to, let's say, reorganize the thing on a big screen. As JB was mentioning in the beginning, this is the monitoring part, where you really want to look at your agents, look at your sites, and especially look at your device and see what's happening on the networks that you're monitoring.
Well, and Giancarlo, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're bringing up a good point that I think I tried to point out earlier. But when you're monitoring systems, a lot of people like that map view because it is a simple way to monitor. Do you see, I know the team is working on more widgets. Is it worthwhile to talk about that now, or are you going to talk about that here?
Yeah, why not? Why not? No, that makes a lot of sense. So exactly, JB, we are going to add more widgets here. At the moment, you can create just tables where you can select either to monitor devices or sensors, and I will show you what sensors are. Devices is basically the IP devices with the capabilities offered by the device itself. We will add more widgets here. We will start with adding, for instance, somebody was asking during the webinar today, this map here is like a widget. The idea is that we will be able to create this as a widget so that you can create your own monitoring dashboard with a map widget with all the sides. But another thing that we are adding, the left side, let's say menu of the old or legacy dashboard is the list of agents with some information about those agents or those sites. This will be also a widgets available in the monitoring table. Short story.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a very good way to do it.
And short story is, if you really love the old legacy dashboard, you will be able to recreate that with a couple of widgets, one for the map, one for the sites. That's it. Of course, we will make sure that those two widgets will be optimized in terms of retrieving information. When I was talking about the big customer that have thousands of agents, the old legacy dashboard, so this one is kind of heavy in loading the thousands of agents they have. While the new dashboard is very quick, as I was showing you before, but it will be very quick also in the monitoring side. So you will be able to create two widgets, agents and a map, and those two widgets will be very, very quick to be loaded. That's basically the short story. Yeah, but the map, the agent list will be a couple of widgets. We will add the widgets for graphs. If you want to add graphs, we will add a pie chart. If you want to add pie charts graph in your dashboard, we will add like big numbers. If you just want to monitor, for instance, with a big number, the temperature of your server room and so on.
Giancarlo, even the line graphs for like the round trip delay, right? Network diagnostics, especially if you're, going out to a particular external host, or even the ISP speed test, right? That's another good monitoring widget that I know we've discussed.
Yeah, correct. And as a matter of fact, myself being in Italy now, I'm monitoring delays with this is my preferred news paper that I usually read. I'm monitoring that as a round trip delay from our Draper office or from our colleagues in UK, and we see the delay. But this is important also, for instance, to monitor delays with a DNS center, or within the same network with all your Cisco devices. Now you have all the Cisco devices, you want to monitor the performance in terms of round trip delay. That's very good point, JB.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I want to show is something that we have recently added. This is a webinar to show you the latest feature. I was showing you before that you can now add not only a table for devices, but a table with sensor. What are the sensors? So far, the sensors are whatever we can extract via SNMP by pre-configured table. So we have added the SNMP pre-configured template or sensors. This is a way to add in a table all the ones that are available on your agents and devices. So you will have a quick list of these capabilities with how many devices in all your agents are supporting that capability. So for instance, for the partition, I can show that 62 devices are already supporting those capabilities. Let me add, for instance, in a QNAP site, but also like a laptop and so on through SNMP. This is just through SNMP. But more importantly, these kind of capabilities will also be added for other features that we have. You know, we have the feature of what we call OS monitoring, the capability of reading data out of laptop, workstation, server, regardless if they are Windows, Linux, or Mac OS operating system. We're able to interact with those systems and extract some information like the type of device, OS version, but also the partition and the space or the memory usage. All this information will be available in this monitoring table. So yeah, in this case, like this is the occupancy of old NAS and other server and so on. One other capability we have added very recently to this monitoring table is the possibility to either open the same table in a new window. So in this way, you will see you can have this kind of window on a different screen or on a big display and so on. But the other thing that you can do right now is you are able to export the content of this table into a CSV. When you have this CSV, you can open this CSV and then review all the data in Excel or whatever, and you can manage the table. You can filter. You can do whatever you want in the table. Now,
that to me, Giancarlo, by the way, that to me is just an awesome feature, because it allows you to generate a snapshot of a particular, a table in this case, but of systems that you're looking at, so that you can either report on it or generate information for customers or the management team, right? I think that's such a great feature.
Yeah, I completely agree. JB. And you know, we are going to add more information in this table so that you can definitely have a view of what's going on all your sites. Now, I want to mention something also, like a limitation that we currently have, but we are going to fix that limitation or remove the limitation. Now, when you create a table like a table of devices, you will be able to select by filtering the type of device. So let's imagine I want to monitor all my network appliances, and I will search for all the network equipment, and then I can add all of them into my table. Okay. Now, the limitation I want to mention here, and let's say I want to show the location, make, just to say if it's a Cisco or whatever. Now, network appliance. The limitation that we have in this kind of view is that this is like a static view with all the devices that I've been accessed right now when I create the table. But imagine you are going to create a new agent, or you are going to add network appliances to one of the agents that you have there. The limitation that we have right now is that new device will not appear here. And this is something that we are going to remove as a limitation very, very soon. So very quickly, we are be able to add a table where the content is dynamic. So the rows will be added dynamically. As soon as you add a new network device, it will show here.
This is awesome. Giancarlo, one of the things that you just did, and we got a question on it, I want to bring it up, is they were comparing the ability to filter in the managed section versus filtering in the monitoring section. I wanted to point out, and I want to get your comment on this, Giancarlo, but you know, when you create a table of devices, you're really looking at very specific information within that table that you care about. You can then filter easily within a column of data, right? And you can, yeah, if you want to click that X, right, you can see how you can get rid of that column.
Yeah.
But if you want to start eliminating data from the table, that really becomes you have to get into the management of the table, right? And
Correct.
editing the columns.
Yeah, correct. So if you want to remove one of the row, yeah, you need to manage device. So
Right.
you need to go like you can even click on remove device. It will enable a multi-select approach where you can select the so let's imagine I want to remove the ones that are offline because I don't care right now. You can select them and then remove them all together. So you remove the devices.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a
Or,
way to easily remove the rows, right, that you've added there. Yeah, this is
all right. I was mentioning before, you can manage the device, and then in the list of devices, you can remove the devices as well.
yeah. Giancarlo, we're at about we're on track for what you and I thought we would be on, but I want to point out that we still have other things we need to chat about. I want to remind everybody, and I know we've said it 2 or 3 times, but in my mind, this is just the beginning of a lot of the capabilities that we're doing here. The manage section is really about being able to find agents, find your sites, or find devices very quickly, and being able to search for those, and then being able to take action on those, while also being able to understand the status of those in that manage section. The monitoring section that Giancarlo has been demonstrating the last 10 minutes is really about looking at the data that you care about in a way or a form that makes sense to you, being able to extract that information into a report as appropriate, or being able to view it in like in more of a network operations center type of setting, right, on the systems that you care about. So hopefully you see and understand, I hope you like the direction that we're going with respect to both the manage and the monitoring sections. So with that being said, you know, Giancarlo, I think we should probably get a little bit more into some of the custom integrations that we are doing, just to fit with the agenda.
Yeah, let's very quickly, I want to mention something about the topology map that we usually have. No, you know, we have added that capability of showing a topology. And one of the nice things we have added recently is this kind of export, which is an export of basically an Excel file, which can be added back into a Visio diagram. So we have this kind of instruction on our help guide. We allow you to export the CSV file, and then what happens is that once you import in the Visio, you can have your own diagram in Visio that you can edit, enrich, and show to your customer in a nicer way.
Such a good point, right? I mean, we've done this capability because we recognize that a lot of people want to do 2 things with the topology map. One is they want a snapshot of what the network looks like right then and there for you know, security compliance or security framework reasons, but also a lot of times people use that network topology map for sales or pre-sales, right? When they are prospecting with a customer, and being able to import it into a tool like Visio allows you to group and segment those devices in a way that makes sense for you. So I really like that we've done this.
Yeah, and another thing very, very similar to this, in the same way you export the Excel and you can import in Visio, you can even read the topology from the API. So you basically get how the devices are connected to each other from the API, and then use a very simple script. Okay, I will show you. So this is this is like an HTML script, and you will see very short, where we have the input of all the nodes and all the edges that you can extract through the API. Okay, and what you can do with that is basically create like a topology like this, or even using other engine for topology and create a nice view for your customer. Again, this is like a very powerful sales material, marketing material for your customers. Okay, so going back to Domotz, you were mentioning something important, GB, custom API or custom driver, sorry. So for whoever is very familiar with Domotz, they know that we have developed, during these years, we have developed several drivers to interface with network switches, to interface with power distribution unit, to interface with the access point, and even some, let's say, IoT devices to extract some information from those devices or to control those devices in some way, like issue command for reboot and so on. Again, in November, we talk about custom integration. Custom integration or custom driver integration is what allows our users to write their own code to retrieve information from the device you like or from the software you like. We have continued to enrich this capability by adding new functionality. As compared to November, for instance, we have added a very nice capability, which is adding custom action. So through the means of custom action, basically the user, this is very simple. Basically, the user can define a button and decide the description of the button which performs something against your device or against the service you connect to, and you will have basically that kind of button available into the Domotz UI. So when you go to the driver section, in this case, there was a webinar button which basically restarts the webinar. Hopefully it's not going to.
Don't restart the webinar, Giancarlo.
It's always something that I like. No, reboot like access point or reboot something, and you pray your God that the access point is not the one you are connected to. But yeah, so
actually a really good example of this, Giancarlo, that you've talked about would be doing a security check, right? Or looking for a certificate, right? And validating that at this point it's valid, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and that's very, very valuable information. No? But again, we have added other capability, like in this case, we have retrieved a list of variables for like this is a controller for temperature in your systems. And one of the things that was not there in November was like an historical graph of what's going on or what you're monitoring in terms of numbers of value that you're monitoring. And I want to mention something that I probably, let me see if I can open something that I recently received.
While you're doing that, Giancarlo, right, this custom driver really gives you as a service provider a way to look into systems that are on the network in a way that may not be, you may not normally do. So if you're dealing with, I mean, you're looking at a boiler here, but if you're looking at a restaurant, right, a chain of restaurants, you want to look at the refrigeration systems to make sure that they're running and monitoring those as expected. It's actually quite straightforward to create a driver for that.
Yeah, I agree. It's very straightforward. I mean, the driver, for instance, of this boiler that I'm showing you, just to show for all those variables that I was showing, this is the code. It's like, I don't know, how many lines? 42 rows, including a lot of comments. So very, very quick and easy. So one thing I was going to show you, unfortunately, I have only a screenshot from our development team because this is something that we are going to add in a couple of weeks. We will going to add the capability of representing data through tables. So not only scalar value like variable value, but a more complex structure like ID, name, CPU, and all the columns that you want to add there. And more importantly, a more useful console log when developing the driver. Now, still speaking about custom driver, one thing I want to make sure that I'm delivering as a message, we are going to create a lot of custom drivers for you. We are planning to add like 30 or 40 different custom drivers in the next couple of months. We will make them available through our portal or through our user guide. And we are very open. We are very open to receive feedback and receive suggestions for new drivers. We are very willing to work with you. I mean, we are basically putting our development team at your service to create the custom driver for you.
Yeah, I mean, what we want to know, Giancarlo, is, you know, the device type, what would it be used for in the use case so that we can, you know, develop against that, right? And make sure it works for your needs, but then we want to be able to make it available to everybody, right? So they can see that, whether that's looking at, I mean, one of the things that the team already did was I think they can interrogate Zoom servers, right? To make sure that they're up and running as expected from the point of view of the agent. Things like that I think are really, really cool. And we want to help build this community. We want you to be a part of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's exactly our point. I mean, and in our plan, there is also the capability of, when you go into the integration, the capability of seeing not only the custom driver that you wrote, but all the custom driver that we have written for you and you can add to your agents and devices. Absolutely. Yeah. JB, very quickly, I want to cover another thing, and then I want to jump into the public API.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, another thing that we have added last year, but we are continuing to develop in that direction. Last year around March, we started with this new feature, which we call network configuration management. Basically, the capability for you to backup the configuration file of your network equipment through Domotz, backup, restore, sync versioning, and so on. And let me show you live how that works. So if I search for my Cisco, oops, well, that's better.
Oh, so you're missing Costco. I saw you put Costco.
That's true. So if I saw my Cisco SG, or that has configuration management configured here, really what I can do with the configuration management is see the history of all the changes that happen to that device, and then eventually restore the configuration. So we basically connect to the device, backup the configuration, check for you if there is a change. We'll send you an email, an alert if something changed. We send you an alert if there is a mismatching between the running and the startup configuration of the device. This is something that we added last year, but why I want to speak about this is because in the last few months, we have added more and more devices, more and more support. We have FortiGate now, WatchGuard, that I think somebody asked during the webinar today, Juniper OS, HP Aruba, SonicWall. MikroTik is not yet available in the user guide. It's just because we added the last week, so we will add in the user guide very soon. And we will add more and more. We will add configuration management, even for software like pfSense.
pfSense, yeah, I was just going to say that's been a big one as well. So
and like devices like Sophos and so on. So we will add that.
Yep.
Okay, and now let's speak about public API. So
yeah, the public API. Right.
We are almost hitting the 1 hour. We have not even done with part of what we were supposed to do. Anyway, configuration public API. In the last few months, we have added several areas in the public API. Jimmy, do you want to start with the concept of a public API? Why we offer public API?
I do. I mean, public APIs and these APIs are essentially what drive our user interface, whether it's through the web app or the desktop application or even the mobile app. So we have essentially allowed you as a service provider, you as an integrator, to be able to access all of the information that's made available through Domotz, right, in our cloud, into these public APIs. We see a lot of our customers that actually will consume our APIs and build out their own dashboards, right, and have their own capabilities. But what Giancarlo is going to be showing you are some of the capabilities that we've added from a API perspective so that you can get more usage and do more configurations of your systems through these APIs right now. So we're giving you access to those APIs prior to making some of that stuff available, or these features available inside the UI. So with that being said, Giancarlo, why don't you go off or go about listing and talking about that?
Yeah, so we, as you mentioned, JB, with the custom, with the public API, you can extract the list of all the sites or agents. You can extract the list of all devices and how the devices are connected to each other, not the topology, basically. But what I want to cover today is what we have recently added to the public API. And why I'm going to talk about that is because we are developing the public API sometimes even faster than the UI. So some of the information that are available in our database are not yet available in the UI. We will make sure that it will be available, but I want to talk about that because some of our users are already using them. So the first thing I want to talk about is the inventory. So somebody has inventory APIs. So somebody was asking, how can I add custom fields to the device? So for instance, we offer a lot of fields for devices like the model, make, location, zone, and so on. But you want to probably add your custom information, like who this device belong to, when it was purchased, where, I don't know, how it's relevant or not. So some of the fields that are specific to you. Through the public API, you are able to add these custom fields. You're able to publish information for those devices on those custom fields and retrieve those information. So if you are one of those users that have created your own dashboard around Domotz, you can have these custom fields represented in your own dashboard and using basically the Domotz database and the Domotz cloud. Another thing that we have recently added is something that allows you to either list all the networks, all the networking interface available to the Domotz agent. In this way, you can, so this get agents interface will show all the network interface available to the to your agent, and you can decide whether or not you want to allow or deny the scan on specific network interface. So for instance, if you're hosting your Domotz agent on a virtual machine that has access to 3 or 4 networks, like one main and 3 or 4 VLANs, by default, Domotz agent will scan all of them. Okay, but if you want to avoid the scan of one of those VLANs, you can now just blacklist or add as a deny rule to that agent. So you basically set an agent interface policy and say that the specific interface will be denied. And I think I have in my Postman, okay, let me see if I can open Postman. Oh, where is it? Yeah, I have this Postman where, yeah, this API, for instance, enumerates all the network interface that are available on a specific agent that I have. No, sorry, this is for the inventory. This one is enumerates all the, yeah, come on, I lost that one. This enumerates all the network interface that are attached to the host of my Domotz agent. And with this put, I can define a rule where I say, okay, I want to only show or only scan a specific network or deny some other network. Then the other thing that we have added, still speaking about the networking and all the capability of the Domotz agent, this is very recently. Imagine you don't want to scan a network, but you want to manually add devices to the list of devices for your agent. You can basically now start the Domotz agent with the scan disabled, and then add IP address to be monitored one by one, or with a list of IP addresses that you want Domotz to start monitoring. If the IP address, yeah.
Go ahead. I'll make my comment after you're done.
Yeah. So if you have a list of IP addresses, Domotz will start identify those devices, retrieve information like the MAC address, the model, the MAC address, and then we start monitoring in exactly the same way you're currently doing with the automatic scanning available in Domotz. Yep. Go ahead.
What I was going to say there, Giancarlo, is we get this request a lot for you know, either integrators that are, you know, have a segmented network where they're not allowed to scan the network because of policies by either the service provider or the IT department. And so being able to disable the scanning and then being able to manually add the IP addresses, right, that you know about or you care about, because usually you're using static configuration on the primary systems. This allows you to still monitor those systems actively while not scanning the network proactively like we do. So this is a long requested feature that is now available.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct, to be exactly for that. Now, another couple of items I want to mention, still somehow related to the public API. The first one is that, as I was mentioning, you can start the Domotz agent with the scan disabled. But the good thing is that you can even start the Domotz agent. So this is for starting the Domotz agent with the scanning disabled. You can start the Domotz agent and configure the Domotz agent from command line. There is an API key specifically for that. The API key only allows to start new agents and configure them. Why it's relevant? Because you might have your own RMM solution already installed on all the endpoints, including some servers, and you want to use that RMM to start and configure the Domotz agent on all your sites. You can now do that through this command line activation. There are scripts available for ConnectWise Automate, for instance, or even for Synchro. There are scripts available, but you are free to add your own scripts. I mean, it's really just an API call, so it's a very simple thing. Again, going back to the public API, we have here is sensors, and one thing that we have added to variable. One thing that we have added variables into the public API is a functionality that allows you to retrieve all the variables or sensors that you have attached to a device, regardless if it is a pre-configured SNMP sensor or if the information comes from a custom driver, the custom integration driver that I was showing you before, or even if the information comes from OS monitoring. Like from the OS monitoring, we can monitor the OS version, the list of all the drives, logical and physical disks, the space occupancy, and so on. But one thing that we are extracting from the OS monitoring is also the list of all applications configured on that device itself. So here again, I have like my, let me see if I remember which one. Oh yeah, I can easily see if I have a device with the OS monitoring. Oh, I have an OS monitoring configured, and yeah, for instance, on this desktop PC, which is currently online, I have some information about the PC itself and the operating system. No, I have information like the Windows version, build number, architecture, memory usage. I have information about the physical disk, the status of the physical disk, the space, and information about the logical disk. So the occupancy right now and how much is still free space. But behind the scene, we are also collecting information about the applications, and we are making sure that we are going to show the applications in UI itself. But right now, it's already available through the public API. So if I go here and I get, where is it? I'm sure I had, but I probably,
too many APIs up there, Giancarlo.
Yeah, there is an API. There is an API to extract all the list of application. I had that here. I probably closed by mistake. But it's basically extract the list of all application on that specific device, which is, I mean, somehow very important.
It is important. In fact, we had a question, Giancarlo, that came in from somebody about being able to extract things like serial numbers from systems, right? Because one of the things that Domotz gets used a lot for is asset management, and understanding, the systems that are on the network, how they are, what's on them, right? How they're configured. The serial number is really good for helping with that. And you can get that either through our UI or through those APIs.
Correct. Yeah, correct, JB. That's very important. With this one, it brings me to the end of presentation. I mean, for sure there are tens or hundreds of other features that we have added and we forgot to mention. We didn't have the time to add our release notes. Yeah.
You want to talk? Yeah, talk about the release notes just so people can see that. But then I want to spend a little bit of time, not a lot, but talking about the future. And then
correct. Yeah, that's a very good point. So if you go on our user guide, help.domotz.com, there is a section with the release notes. You will see that every single month we release hundreds or at least tens of new features. So make sure that you look at the release notes and you can see whatever has been added in the last few months.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Giancarlo, it's interesting because we got a lot of really good questions. I know you and I, we're going a little bit longer than we expected, but it's because we are actively answering questions while we were in there. I do want to talk a little bit about the changes that we're making and where we're going with this, because I know that there's a few people watching that saw some things that they were offering suggestions, and some of those suggestions are coming. Let's roll back a little bit to the manage section. The thing that you see at the top left are managing sites and managing devices. One of the big requests that we've seen as we've started talking and working with the service provider community a lot more is this need for being able to also manage by customer. Can you talk a little bit about where we're going there, Giancarlo?
Absolutely, absolutely, JB. So we are going to add a hierarchy basically for the manager, starting from the customer or the organization that you need to manage. So you will have a lot of organization, and each organization multiple sites. So we will add, before the sites, we will add a new tab which will list the organization. So basically it's something that like the customer idea JB was mentioning before, but there will be a dedicated space for that. So you can start creating organization and then organize sites among those organizations. And speaking by hierarchy, in our vision, the hierarchy is like the organization on the top, and then the site a little bit in the middle, and then device that belongs to the sites. And as I was showing before, we collect applications installed on every single device, or at least ones where we can read applications. We will add a tab here where you can search among all of your sites, all of your devices, and for specific applications. So for instance, if you are notified that there is a specific CVE, so a vulnerability on application XYZ, you can search XYZ across all your customers. And you can see the version if it is affected or not by the vulnerability. Yep.
This is a very important note, Giancarlo. So one of the big changes that we're doing to this manage section is, we're kind of looking at the middle of the, if I can call it the hierarchy, for looking at sites and devices, but we're going to be giving you the ability to manage at the customer or organization level, like you said, and then we're also going down to inside the devices, right? Being able to monitor, applications or systems that are running within devices as well. And I think that is really just broadening the reach of what a true network monitoring tool needs to do. Because a lot of times it may be an application that's running on a particular system that is affecting the network holistically. And we want to give you visibility into that and better visibility. So I'm super stoked about where we're going there.
Yeah, thanks, Abhi. Yeah, I'm also very, very excited to go in that direction and adding those capabilities. Another thing that we will add, JB has mentioned multiple times at the beginning, this is a starting point for us to make this UI more useful for you and provides a quicker access to the data that you need. One of the things that JB was mentioning, you can now sort directly by the important device which are offline or device that you carry which are offline. We are going to add a link, direct link to review all these 39 devices or all these 22 devices which are offline. So they will add these kind of capabilities there. And at the same time, we will also add a few other information on the monitoring table. We mentioned about new widgets. We mentioned about new way of organizing the widgets together and to put in a big screen. But one area that Domotz is also very, Domotz is very powerful on is also the alerting capabilities offered by Domotz. Domotz is a managed monitor, of course, but of course you want to be alerted if something happens on the network or the device that you want to monitor. And when we speak about devices, something that can change on a device is the value of a specific variables. And if somebody is with Domotz for a while, you know that some of the variables offer the capability of setting alerts, Some other variables, like the one that comes from the custom integration or the ones that comes from the OS monitor, they do not yet have these capabilities. So we will add that capabilities, but more importantly, we will add the capabilities in the monitoring table to highlight when a certain value breach a threshold. We will add the right point and click to set up an alert directly from the monitoring table. We will add the capability of configuring very complex formulas, if you want, to monitor the variables there. Like if the value of the round trip delay is below, it's above 10 milliseconds and there are some packet loss, then send an email. Otherwise, open a ticket on Zendesk or send a notification on your Slack channel or Microsoft Teams channel. And more importantly, all these alerts will be collected together, and you will have also a widget in the monitoring table where you have the list of all the latest events that you care about. So like a blotter with all the events that happened in the last few hours, so that you can review whatever is happening on all the sites that you care of.
And I think, Giancarlo, that the notion of history of alerts, right? So you can look through that, like you said, a blotter, right? That was very like 1970s of you, by the way. But I think that it's a really important thing for our alerts going forward and how we start addressing alerts. So it's good. Yeah. We are absolutely at the time that I thought we would be, given some of the questions and where we are. We knew that this would go a little bit long. I appreciate everybody staying with us. We got a few, obviously some of the basic things. This is being recorded, and you guys can definitely catch up or recap on this. An email will be sent out to you in probably the next few hours for those that attended or those that did not. They'll get this recording as well. One of the things was, can we forward this on to my colleagues? And the answer is yes. You'll be able to send that on. Giancarlo, a couple of consistent questions that I was seeing throughout all the questions that we got was really about the customization of the columns on the manage page. Right. The idea is, today we kind of just put the list of all the columns that we have available right now, but some columns may not be needed by a particular customer. I know we said that we will give the ability to minimize columns or sort them. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on when we think that will come about, when that will happen?
Yeah, I would say in a few weeks, but the idea is to allow you to hide columns or sort in a different way. Sort the columns in a different way. So far, you have only a sorting capability, a single sorting capabilities. But if you are familiar with the monitoring table are so powerful that you can sort by 1, 2, 3, and 4 kind of a column, and then remove one of the sorting, and then allow the other sorting to take on, and so on. So we will add that capability as well. As we were mentioning before, we will add the pre-configured filter, and so if you want to only see like these kind of sites in the device, it is that we want to make sure that you will be allowed to save pre-configured filter there, and so on. So it's something really, really powerful there.
And Giancarlo, I've seen this comment actually today in a question, as well as comments from on the support channel. We've seen this as well, and it's the question around dark mode, right? Because when you look at the legacy page, right, it's actually fairly pleasing to the eyes, and especially if you're in a dark room, right, it has more of a dark mode. But when you go to the monitor and manage, it becomes a lot brighter. I know the team has added some capabilities, again, on our back end side to be able to adjust colors for theme purposes. But have we looked at dark mode, and do you know if there's a timeline for that?
Yeah, we are looking into that one. It's a little bit more complex than we thought initially, but we have a way of changing colors to the UI. So the idea is that we will allow users to select two modes, like dark mode and standard mode with white. I completely understand the concern of our customer standing in front of this white page for a couple of hours, yeah, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
So it
One, we had actually a really good technical question that I wanted to bring up, and this is something we've talked about in the past, but Giancarlo, I want to get your take on this. I think the team answered this person directly, but it has to do with our network topology mapping. The question really is around LLDP, right?
Yeah.
And have we enabled LLDP? Do you mind speaking to that?
So when we talk about the LLDP protocol or the CDP for Cisco protocol, there are a couple of things that comes into my mind. One of the things is definitely how devices are connected to each other. And in that kind of thing or answer, the answer is that we have already added the support for LLDP for the network topology. So the network topology is already using the LLDP, but we still use also the RFC 4188, which is a different protocol, or actually a different standard, which tells how devices are connected to each other. So we combine those things together. We still need to add the CDP as well, so we will add that CDP. And then the second aspect of LLDP and CDP is the discovery protocol, or on all the devices that are reachable on network. So at the moment, Domotz perform the scan of the devices through the means of ARP scan, basically. We will add the support for LLDP and CDP as well. So in this way, you will be able to identify device cross VPNs or cross-routed network. But one misconception that is always there is like Domotz identifying device on VLANs. If you have VLANs already configured and the device hosting the Domotz agent has access to those VLANs, Domotz already identify all the devices across all the VLANs accessible to that device.
Right. That's a very good point. I mean, yeah, I mean, we've definitely used the RFC protocols ever since we began, right? So we could understand and map how devices are connected to the switches. But adding that link layer discovery protocol and the Cisco discovery protocol, I think, has really just allowed us to enrich the maps even further, especially when there may not be like a bridge MIB associated with a particular device. So LLDP has been a good addition. This is good. This is good. I think, Giancarlo, at this time, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. I know that this was a very one of our longer webinars, but as you can see, we've made a lot of changes and a lot of additions here. We did get a lot of really good comments, which we will take back in and add to some of our feature request lists about things that people would like to see. We also got questions about devices, right, or hardware that they would like to see integrated into our system. And this always gives me the opportunity to say, if there are systems out there, whether they're firewalls, routers, managed switches, whatever they may be, where you think we need to, wireless access points especially, where we need to do more integration, right, or bring them into our system so we can do either the configuration management or, as Giancarlo also talked about earlier, if there are systems where you think a custom driver, like we talked about, would be warranted, please email support@domotz.com, because we, Giancarlo, myself, and the team, we're always reviewing those requests. We're trying to prioritize those, and we're trying to get those out. And when it comes to the deeper integrations that are in our UI, like with access points and firewalls and routers, we want to know what people are using so we can do those drivers. And then also for customized drivers that may be on secondary or tertiary systems where we can do a custom driver for you, we want to hear about that as well. So please send a note to support@domotz.com. Giancarlo, is there anything else that we want to finish up here before we shut down the webinar?
No, that's a very good closure, GB. I want to mention that, yeah, we received hundreds of questions, really hundreds of questions. Our team has been probably answered 90% of them. I still see a few of them not answered because just for timing, we will make sure that we will answer. We will send an email after the webinar to answer or understand better the question. We also received a nice comment, like one mentioning that it's not a question that he mentioned that he's sitting in a music festival in the UK while monitoring all the networks that he cares through Domotz. And that comment reminds me that something that our users are not always aware of is that our Domotz UI is also very, very available in a different form. I mean, it's available as a web app, of course, as the one that I was showing you before. It's available as a desktop app, which is the ones that JB is usually using while doing the demo. But you can have exactly the same UI on your iPhone or Android phone. And so you can sit on the beach, especially in this summer period, and monitor your network and manage your network. You can do remote session via SSH and fix the issue for your customer while sitting on the beach.
But make sure your spouse, right, recognize or doesn't see you doing work while you're on vacation. Okay.
Yeah.
So, lesson that I learned, you know. So very good. Giancarlo, thank you so much for you know, showing all this good stuff. Kudos again to the team, because I think based on all the comments we're getting, people are really excited about this, and I know that there's more to come. So everybody, thank you, and we will definitely be talking to you soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.